As we know, we're here with Tony from Art L.A., who helped us host and create the gallery. So would you like to explain a little bit about who you are and what Art L.A. is?
Absolutely. And yes, I did help with this gallery, just overseeing it. You guys did an amazing job. Real quick though, so like Art Share is located downtown, in the heart of downtown. We're like the last non-profit space with affordable housing, affordable studios. We used to be a factory, now we're like just like a big artist hub. We feature mostly emerging artists. We're big for when you're coming out of college and we're a lot of people's first show, and that is mostly what we focus on, is trying to help people get their careers off the ground. Again, we're the last affordable housing, and we're trying to branch out and work with other nonprofits. So working with Student Art Spaces was a no-brainer, because you guys are just like a larger chapter all over the country of what we do, even younger. So if you have any questions about ArtShare after, please feel free to email me. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to Bianca.
Thank you. So I'll just explain a little bit about Student Art Spaces Los Angeles as well. So we're the Los Angeles branch of Youth-Led Initiative Student Art Spaces. We're dedicated to equity in the arts for both youth and POC creatives. By providing free and low-cost experiences for young artists, we hope to break down any financial, racial, or gender barriers that might hinder marginalized groups from participating in events. And as you know, the recent outbreak of COVID-19 forced us all to stay at home. And while that can bring on a lot of negative emotions, the art in our latest gallery aims to offer some sort of positivity and hope during this time. Many talented artists from around the world participated, and we're joined by some of them again here today to highlight the artists' response to COVID-19 and how that influenced their mindsets and their works. So today we have Jack Reed, the artist behind Tightly Knotted, Aliya Nestru with the photo series Laughter and Hopeful Fear, and lastly, Shanna Finnegan with Finding Light in Darkness. So first, I guess you guys can introduce yourselves and explain a little bit about your journey and processes as a young artist, and we can go in order from how I'm seeing you guys. So Jack, Shanna, and Aliya, I guess.
Hi, my name is Jack Reed. I'm currently 16 years old, and I've been involved in making art, specifically abstract art, for the past 7 years, though I really only began taking it seriously in the past 3, ever since I turned 13. I try to come to conclusions about my processes a lot, and my style more or less comes from places within me that I still need to sit with and understand, though when I do art, it's something that I do depending on my mood, and it's something that I do depending on my ambitions going from day to day. It's essentially something I use also to reflect upon my emotions and engage with the effort of making something meaningful in the eyes of other people and towards myself. And to me, I just take what I hear and see in the world and use it as a filter to understand and appreciate that. So.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Shanna Finnegan. I recently graduated as a high school senior. And although it's kind of cliche, I guess I've been drawing ever since I could hold a pencil. So art has always been a really big part of my life. But over the course of high school, within the past 4 years, I've really grown not only stylistically, but in my mentality of what art can be used for. So, getting to know other people in my grade who wanted to pursue creative things. It was really cool to collaborate them and be able to use art more as a way of communication. So I've been trying to get more into graphic design and stuff like that, so that someday hopefully I can incorporate it into my career, or even just have it as a really cool hobby. So that's what I'm interested in right now. And yeah, I guess that's just my artistic journey.
And so I guess a little bit about my journey is I picked up a camera at 13, when I got my first phone, basically. And that's when I started photography. After just the, normal, oh, that's a flower, let me take a picture of that. But I learned more photography and took photography classes at school. I started to journey more into portraiture, and through that, I saw that I could be able to convey emotions more clearly and just show people's story through a single picture. And that's just what kept me captivated with portraiture art and photography. Just the idea of being able to like show a story through a single photo, showing a single emotion, and just having multitudes of people being able to feel that emotion when they look at your picture has always been something that just has driven me to continue my photography. So yeah, that's a bit of my journey.
Thank you for sharing your guys' story. It's very nice to meet you. With the outbreak of the pandemic, what were your initial feelings, whether it be boredom, anger, frustration, or any other sentiments? And how did you cope with any of these negative emotions?
So what I felt at the beginning of the pandemic was essentially I was in a really panicked state, mainly over my concerns as to how the world would react and deal with the situation as a whole. In the beginning, you basically saw places that were once bustling with people, and they were completely deserted out of fear. And I was also disgusted because of the outbreak of xenophobia that went with the beginning of the panic for the first 2 months across my country. And I was also afraid, on top of this, of how the scare of the virus itself would affect the mental states of the people I knew and people that were close to me. And I guess over time, over the duration of it, at first, there was sort of like a quiet acceptance that also came over me gradually, knowing that my life essentially mirrored a lot of the conditions due to where I lived geographically that other people now found themselves in. And I just kind of found comfort in what I could. It was during a very stressful time of junior year, so it was a lot to carry. And I just found comfort in what I could, that being escapism in my art and the simplicity in people that made me act as my best self and who I was most comfortable with. I tend to face situations with a determined optimism, and though I was extremely worried for the shape of things to come, all I could do and can really continue to do is wake up in the morning and try and hold on to the small pleasures and distractions that help me get through things, especially my art, for instance.
You did mention junior year. What is it like being in high school and having this happen? I'm struggling with it as an adult working in the world, and it affects my art and it affects the way I make my decisions. So as somebody who's technically a minor, but not really, as a 16-year-old, like you're learning, you're becoming a young adult, how is that affecting your art? What is it like being with your family? If you can elaborate on that.
So I don't usually I haven't gone to a public high school in 5 years. I work completely alone. I had to work nearly 12 hours, 7 days a week for this year, and last year it was longer. So it was a lot for me to handle, and I didn't really have a lot of time. All I really had to do with art was I could draw only at late at night. So it was usually, I guess it was very lonely, to be honest, and being with the same people in the same space sort of gets to you in a way, but I learned to deal with it and to cope with it with what I could, and I'm still doing okay, and I'm in a great mind space right now, but it was certainly difficult at the time.
Anna, would you also like to talk about your initial feelings with the pandemic and also your experiences as a high school senior, experiencing like the closing of school and events?
Yeah, okay, so I guess at the very, very beginning, I mostly was just really confused, and I know that for a little while there, I didn't fully grasp the severity of what was going on. I know that at the very, like I said, at the very, very beginning, when I first got out of school and everything like that, people weren't taking it very seriously. And I was just like, I got out of my gov test. But as time went on, it became clearer and clearer to me exactly what the world was going through. And I think this kind of goes along with what ended up comforting me with time. But I'm very privileged to be able to say that I realized how grateful I should be for everything that I have and for my family, and that during this time I can stay with them and have their company. So that's been what gives me hope and makes me happy every day, just seeing my sister and my mom and my dad and spending time with them. So yeah. Oh, and then sorry, on the point of what it's like being a incoming college freshman during this time, I think especially right now, of course it doesn't feel like I'm going to college, and it doesn't feel like that big of a deal anymore at this point that I'm not going to be on my college campus probably. I know that last year as a junior thinking about going to college, I would have been freaking out and really mad, but putting everything into perspective, it's really not the worst thing in the world. I'm in a really good place to be able to say that I can still even afford to go to college right now, and pay that much money, even though it's not an in-person class. So yeah, I think I've kind of accepted what's going to be happening this next semester, but yeah.
Yeah, as a junior right now, thinking about applying to college, I think like just seeing how each college like handled the pandemic and their courses and the students, like that's an important factor to like take into consideration. And Aliaya, would you like to talk about your like how you coped with any negative emotions at the start of the pandemic?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I mainly felt stressed because last year, as a sophomore, I'm going to be going to my junior year, but I was taking 3 AP tests, and I was very stressed out about what was going to be going on with those tests, what was going to be happening with my other classes. I just felt like lost, like overwhelmed really in the beginning. I didn't really have a plan. I was just kind of, lounging around and then scrambling to do my homework, and I just felt like really stuck, and I just became really just lazy in a way, and I just, because of all like how overwhelmed I felt. But after just like a week or two of just feeling like overwhelmed, I was like, you know what, I'm in a privileged state where I don't have to worry about putting food on the table or anything. I have a home, and like I have internet to do my school, And so, that's when I started making a schedule for myself, and I was like, you have to get like on track. And I started seeing it as more of a positive thing, because like when in our lives will we ever have a chance to just have as much free time as we do now and learn a new skill? Or for me, mainly it was mostly picking back up photography, because during the school year, it was hard for me to take pictures and find time to take pictures because I was doing schoolwork, I was doing sports, I was doing clubs. So I started to look at it as a chance to grow and reconnect in the hobbies that I love to do, like photography, and like pick up some new ones, like learning a new language. Like I'm learning like Italian, and like skateboarding, like learning how to skateboard. So I think I've just turned it into a positive thing, but at the same time, I've also taken this time, especially what's been going on around the world right now, I've taken this time to truly like educate myself on things not only in our own country, but things that are happening outside of the US as well. So yeah.
It's amazing how you guys have managed to turn something so dark and kind of a depressing thing into something for personal growth and kind of making the best out of the situation, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's very admirable. I also felt the same way, especially AP test season. That was terrible. But it's nice to know that there are people like us and people our age who are able to kind of channel their creativity and their drive to be a better version of themselves, to take this pandemic and just manifest that into a reality. So thank you guys. You guys are cool.
Yeah, and I think that theme really translated into our gallery theme, which was like reminders of beauty, happiness, and hope. And those are the main focuses of the pieces. So what did you guys turn to for inspiration during this time? And what did you find in it that offered you hope or simply made you happy? And how did this translate into the work that you submitted? Sorry, this is a little repetitive from the last question, but.
Oddly enough, because I was working a lot, I didn't really have a lot of places I can go. And with where I live, I literally can't really go anywhere. But I turned, during the first few months of the pandemic, I actually turned to music a lot for inspiration and generally just comfort. And it's okay to laugh at me, but specific kinds of music like jazz and its many subgenres played a major role in how I wanted to draw during that time, and it gave me a lot of ability to reflect upon what I wanted to do in the future and how I wanted to improve my creative process. And what I mean by that is I set and continue the set of goals of embodying a kind of spontaneous nature in my art that sort of goes beyond really anything I could evoke with words. And something notable to add in terms of music would be how along with jazz, things like ambient music or Japanese folk music help me appreciate minimalism and different kinds of art styles that didn't really focus on heavy amounts of composition or color, and it added on to how I drew, particularly in the last few months, and it's allowed me to become more refined in my style and allow for a more cohesive and flowing composition for my works. And though my art is completely the opposite of minimalist and how music is very distant from my art, I usually have to turn to it in times of hardship. And it's laughable how strange these things are and how they influence me, but I guess nonetheless, I think trying to look towards new backgrounds and new places for inspiration, even in just art and beyond, has really helped me deal with my own life and my own situation currently, and has essentially gotten me through a lot of high school because it's been rather difficult for me. And I think I want to continue going in this direction going forward and find new places to do such a thing.
Okay, I guess I'll talk a little bit about the things that have inspired me, and I guess kind of just generally my artwork, and then a little bit about the piece that I submitted. So I talked during the last question about how spending time with my family has given me hope, and I think just generally, you know, having so much time, just during the school year, obviously I didn't have so much time to do these things, but really just take a moment to take a breath and to rest and to not be thinking about anything and not be doing anything. I think that has given me, it's made me happy, really, and just like listening to sounds that I never heard before, like the wind rustling the trees or like the wind chimes in my neighbor's house. It's really calming, and I realized during this time that during the school year and during pretty much my entire 4 years of high school, I never really took the time to just sit and listen and be calm. And having the time to do that is really, I guess it's just really healthy for me right now. And the way it translates into my artwork, I guess I've just been trying to take my time more with my artwork. A lot of the art that I did for school was like rushed, and it was following a prompt that my teacher gave me, and I was just trying to meet all the requirements. But now that I just have a lot more time to create art for myself, I've been trying to spend more time on each piece and really go through each of the little details. If I don't like something, I'll draw it again, rather than just drawing something to get it out there. And I definitely tried to do that with the piece that I submitted. So yeah.
So for me, I feel like in the beginning, I turned to movies. Like, I just found such like a beauty in like cinematography and like a lot of the new movies that came out. I just felt like certain parts were just like so, it encapsulated me, and I watched the part over and over again. And so like me and my sister would have like movie nights like every single night, and I'd watch those movies, and I'd like pause at a certain part and I'd take a picture of it, and I'd be like, I want to take a picture that looks like that. And I just feel like movies really helped me get back into the photography that I wanted to do, and that like I wanted other people to see. And so like specifically for like the piece that I turned in for the gallery, I had just kind of wanted to do a more like real life kind of captured in the moment. So I basically just, you know, told my siblings to play in my room, and I was like, play in my room and maybe I'll pose you and just like I'll take pictures. And I think that if I hadn't watched all those movies that I watched, like I watched Little Women, and like just like the parts where they're like in the field like with their sisters and like laughing, I'd pause those parts and I'd be like, that's like a picture that I would want to take. Or like in Just Mercy, like there's a scene when Nick Millen is getting left, is leaving prison, and he turns back to like look at his cellmates, like that, just like those type of scenes like just pull at me, and I want to recreate something like that. And that's what I try to capture in my photos that I submitted for the gallery, and just like pure emotion that I didn't have to stage. And I just feel like with pictures like photography like that, it just being convey an emotion, like having other people feel like hope or like fear, laughter, all those things. Like when you look at a picture of somebody laughing, maybe you think of a time that you were happy. Like if my artwork like makes somebody feel happy, like that's just the whole goal. So yeah.
Is there any like specific like genre of movie that you like to draw your inspiration from, like, or like a sort of like movie directing company that you particularly enjoy to draw inspiration from?
Not particularly, but I have just been watching a lot of movies from A24, just because there are a bunch of them, and the cinematography in each and every one of them is always beautiful and spectacular. They're just trying to like go into like any type of like I made up like a movie list of like anything from like black and white movies to like movies from like, just as I was talking about, like Just Mercy. So it's really just a movie, any type of movie, as long as it captures like human emotion.
All right, thank you. So now that we know what has inspired you, I'd like to know what you think about your impact and how you inspire others. So what emotions or changes do you hope to invoke with your art, whether that be alleviating anxiety during this time or promoting positive mental health? So we'll start with Jack again.
I think I make art as an act of love, and that's something I reflected on. And what I really want from it is that I want it to be something that suits people for just a moment. And abstract art is essentially demands the opposite of that, as it asks for its audience to look for answers within themselves, to draw conclusions as to what the piece is really saying. And though my art is very often and very commonly made with meaning and substance in mind, sometimes it really just isn't, and it's just made for the sake of making something and to take me away from my problems or from what's happening for just a moment. And I hope my art essentially can help other people realize that art can just be, and it can exist without much behind it, without much really justifying its existence. And sometimes that the simple act of making something can really do wonders for you, and it can put you in a place that's, without really taking any action, you wouldn't really be. And maybe there's a sense in spontaneity in the act of making something just out of nothing. And I hope my art can maybe teach people or allow people to realize that they can do that, essentially. That's what I really want from it.
Okay, so for me, I think that what I want to do with my art, though not everything that I've put out right now has this goal in mind. A lot of my art has been for myself recently, but I think one thing, especially at the beginning of quarantine, that I was trying to do is kind of bring people together and make people feel unity by looking at my art, which, you know, reminds me of a project that I was actually doing for school at the beginning of quarantine, and I wanted to, it was a free choice project, so I just wanted to make it art related, since it was something that I was okay with spending a lot of time on. But I made an animation to go with a bunch of interviews I did of people on Omegle, which was interesting. But I was asking them about their experience in quarantine and what they were doing to pass the time by and how they were coping with everything. And so I just kind of added a little visual feature to it with my animation. But I think after that project, when I watched it back, I realized that actually just myself seeing it, it made me feel a lot less alone, because that was during the time when I really did not know what was going to happen with school or even with, you know, college and whatnot. And so just hearing about what people were doing to pass the time by, and hearing that other people were pursuing creative things too in order to pass the time by, it was really inspiring, because, you know, it's really easy to lose motivation when you're at home all day. But that was one of the projects that really, I realized that I wanted to do a lot more projects like that. And that's something that's a goal I want to keep trying to work towards with my art. So, yeah.
Okay. So, I guess the time again, but I just hope, like, through my, like, photography, I can just convey the emotion that I want to convey. Like, if at the time, like, for what I put in the gallery, like I said, laughter and hopeful fear, and that is the emotions that I wanted to invoke in the viewer who saw the picture. For, like, the laughter, I wanted them to feel happy and, like, uplifted and light, and, like, in the, like, the hopeful fear picture, I wanted them to see, like, the fear that was in one's eyes and the hope that was in the others. And I just, with, like, through photography, convey emotions clearly. Like, it won't be like, I wonder what this is saying. Like, I want that one emotion to just stand out and, like, almost overwhelm the photo. And so that, in that way, I can connect a bunch of people. Everybody feels the same emotion when they look at my picture, and they can feel, like, connected and united, and just have a connectedness that I feel like that the world is almost missing right now. And hopefully through art, that as many people as it reaches, I hope that it connects all of those people together.
So you guys, a lot of you guys mentioned that you're highlighting more details and focusing on more of, like, the narrative and emotions behind your art, like not just putting something out there with empty meaning, or, as Shanna said, like, with a prompt. So in what ways has the pandemic reshaped your view of art and its impacts? So has the pandemic shown you the value and importance of art, especially during times like these?
To me, art can essentially be a tool both to communicate and to soothe. It can help allow for others to emotionally consult and grow in a healthy and dynamic way, knowing well that others have essentially the emotions that they feel have been felt by other people as well. I think right now people are generally turning to art in different forms, that being art in video games, movies, or even just what we think of as traditional galleries. And I think it just helps us remember the act of living and not taking things seriously. Art allows us to be more lighthearted about how we go out each of our days, and helps us realize that other people want to help us out, and that others have essentially felt the same as us. And I think art has, throughout the last few months, been showcasing its power to communicate and its importance in reshaping how we view the world and what's happening in it right now.
So I think my answer is pretty similar to how I answered the last question. I thought immediately to the project that I just talked about, but Definitely now more than ever, I've realized, like Jack said, the power that art has when it comes to communication. Just going on Instagram, especially right now when so much is going on besides the pandemic. Maybe it's just the Instagram algorithm that's showing me more of these things, but I see a lot of pieces that come up in my feed that aren't purely for aesthetic, like I've been used to, you know, in 7th and 8th grade, looking at people drawing anime characters and whatever. But, you know, I mean, sometimes I look at these pieces and I think to myself that I just feel like they couldn't be conveyed any other way. The message couldn't be delivered as well with any other form of communication other than art. And that's been really inspiring for me. You know, I realized that I can do a lot of other things with my art besides draw a bowl of fruit or, you know, draw a self-portrait. Now, more than ever, I know I talked about it before, about how during high school, that was something that I realized, but especially right now, seeing other people who are my age being able to use art to convey the messages that they're conveying, it's really just so inspiring. So yeah.
Pretty similar to Shanna. It's been a lot of me seeing on Instagram art that usually doesn't pop up on my timeline, but every time I see it, I'm like, that is powerful, that has a message, and that is something that like I would want to replicate. And I think the pandemic has truly shown me the ways like that art can like connects people in a way. Like if I like start a movie, I could tell my friend, hey, let's watch this movie, and like, you know, over like Zoom or something, or like how Jack was talking about music, like he connects to so many people through music. And I found some people who like the same type of music as me, and I found ways to connect with people that I wouldn't have connected with before if it hadn't been for this pandemic. And I feel like in this pandemic, I feel like more and more people have been making art, which is always a good thing. And myself included, like I feel like I've delved into more, like I do portraiture, but I am like maybe doing like self-portraits, which I've like never done before, and like doing more out there type of photos that I wouldn't have done before, and delving into like some painting, which I'm not very good at, but I'm trying it, and it's just like another creative outlet for me. And I feel like without this pandemic, like I wouldn't have done any of those things or seen those things or connected with these people.
So Shanna talked a little bit about the new wave of art that's hitting social media and the stuff that's about today's events and how many artists have been posting art that reflects it. So this may be a little repetitive, but what do you feel is the artist's role in society, especially during major societal changes like the Black Lives Matter movement and nationwide quarantine?
To me, the role of the artist, and what's important to say is that most artists do what they do simply as second nature to who they are as people. Essentially, people who want to communicate certain ideas and allow people to feel certain emotions and translate that into their own lives. And whether it be how they feel, what they see, or what matters to them, it all is under that umbrella. This can reach towards simply the effort of stating goals, ambitions, and preferred changes that are important to the group, like I said, towards how an artist operates as an artist. I'm sorry. But specifically towards the Black Lives Matter movement, and how we mentioned that art is an excellent tool for communication. I see how art is allowing for individuals to take the action necessary to educate themselves on what's going on in the world and change and develop our ways of viewing the world through mutual understanding, empathy, and sheer action alone. And that's a really beautiful thing. And it's frankly really inspiring to me. And I'm happy to be seeing that.
Yeah, similarly for me, first, I guess, going off of Jack's point again, art, of course, especially right now, is being used more and more as a form of communication. And, you know, not even just to, when I looked at this question, the first thing I thought of was how many, many years ago, there were just, the only way that we could capture what was going on was through art, through drawings. We didn't have cameras. We didn't have phones to take like a quick picture. So art was the way that was part of the way. Art through writing, art through visual art was part of the way that we kept records of things. But now that we do have straight up just phones that we can just snap a quick picture with, the recording part of the process is done. We don't have to do that anymore. So I think the purpose of art during times like this it goes beyond just trying to communicate to people who are, you know, looking back at these pieces of art. It's more than just depicting what is just plainly there. It's more depicting also the feelings that are going around, and just, I know we've talked about this a lot, but yeah, just the emotions that are prevalent at this time. And I think that's where photography as an art, or visual arts, or writing, or music goes beyond just taking a record of what is going on in the world. And so that later on, I guess this kind of leads into the next question, but later on when we look back at the art that was created during this time, we see more than just a picture of something. We see like rage or loneliness, or, you know, it's more tangible than just a flat image.
So basically, building on what everyone has been saying so far, I feel like I learned a lot about art this year through European history, and I feel like art has always been a form of protest. Every time there's a new form of art, people were like, that's not okay. You can't draw, you can't paint like that, you can't take pictures like that. But these artists continue to do their medium in the way they wanted to, and eventually that just brought change in their time. I feel like there is a revolution. There's always an uptake of art circulating around the area, the world. And I feel like the photos and the pictures and the art, like the drawing, paintings, painting art, like they are all trying to convey the same message that people have been chanting in the streets, that people have been trying to do, like, you know, like Black Lives Matter, that's prevalent in the art. Get people just to wear a mask, and like through us, like org, they have a lot of they show a lot of artists, and they have like their work on posters that are all like conveying a certain message. I feel like that in a way has inspired me, but has also like shown me like how that art, like whenever I see those posters, people like I need to be part of this movement, or like I need to like continue backing, I need to like continue like fighting with them. And I just feel like that art is a form of protest, and that art can move along a message needs to be said a person in to like want to learn more. And it is just a form of communication, and like Shanna said, hopefully future generations will look back on this time, and like when they look back at the art, the photographs, the drawings, maybe even the spray paint, if it's documented, they'll feel like what we're feeling right now.
So as many of you mentioned, art can be seen as a tool of communication, and this writing, painting, graphic design, and photography is used to record a lot of history and reflect on a lot of historical events. So like with the Reformation and Renaissance periods, we saw like religious heroes and depictions of like biblical events, while Dadaism reflected post-war sentiments of like feeling like nothing matters anymore. So similarly, what significance do you hope your art during quarantine will pose for later generations, setting the time that we're living through?
I don't really know, and I've thought about this question a lot. I think all I want for them is to come to it in a time of need and reside in what I've made and what I'm eventually going to make to improve their own artistic or personal interests. I want them to use it as a basis to remember that there's happiness in the simple act of making something, that there's so much that hasn't been done or made or said, and I don't know if my art is good or ever will be good under the definitions of different people, and though I'm concerned about that every day, seeing one person at all using my art and what I've made as a basis to state what I want is more than enough to keep trying and more than enough to try and engage in the effort of wanting to be remembered. Maybe they'll see melancholy or stillness or a type of flow in it or something I can't even predict, but I hope for those who see it, whoever they are, to remember that they are themselves as individuals and that through art there's a chance to grow as people. I think that's the significance it has, or what I want it to have. The significance that through making things we can explore more of ourselves and more of we want with our lives and grow as people in the face of challenges, uncertainty, and hardship amidst loneliness and fear.
So I know in my last answer I started getting into this question a little bit, so I guess I'll just continue starting there. I hope that future generations can look back on the art created by artists in general during this time, not necessarily just my art, and you know, be able to reflect on the historical events that were going on. But on a much smaller level, I guess, I hope that they can, I guess, maybe this is more specifically for my art, but I hope that they can look back at it and kind of get an idea of what the time was like for young people, because that's, you know, that's the person I am. That's going to be reflected in my art. And one thing that I hope can be kind of apparent in my art that I have created, that maybe I will create at some point in the future, that this is just a time when artists have a lot of, a lot of freedom to just try a lot of new things. I know that I've broken out like my old oil pastels from like 6th grade that I've never used ever, just for fun, or like I've drawn with crayons because at a certain point your tablet just doesn't do it anymore. And so, you know, yeah, so I got bored of things that I've been doing over and over again. And so it kind of made me, I know that at the beginning of quarantine, I kind of got into this like art block, but trying different things made me kind of almost, this is kind of dramatic, but it made me fall in love with art again and realize why I really, really liked it. And so, yeah, I hope that people, maybe young kids, can look back, or like people my age can look back at this work that I've created and get those feelings that we were talking about throughout, get those feelings of what a young person like me was going through during that time, and just as a whole, us as a generation, what we were going through during this time. Because for us, I guess it's very different from people who are older, I would have to say. So, yeah.
So for me, I feel like it's just been what I've been saying over and over again. It's just like conveying the message that I want to convey, especially in the art that's in this gallery. I feel like it captures how I've been feeling, and I feel like other people have been feeling during this time. But just like in the art that has been made right now, like what I want future generations to see when they look back at it is how we took a time like this that is pretty depressing really when you think about it, but you know, we've all gotten almost used to it. And we took it as a time and we still found a way to make art, find a light in the world, use our art to convey messages, like focus on other things, not just pandemic, like the Black Lives Matter movement, other movements have been going on around the world. And we took the time to we took this time to genuinely like improve ourselves. I feel like most people did that. And we didn't like wallow in like self-pity of like not being able to go outside, but we truly took this time and made it our own. And, you know, like me personally, like I try to things because usually I just do a shoot with somebody or like I can't go call up one of my friends and like do a shoot with them. But like now it's like forced me to like find ways to like be creative in my own space and with the people around me and even just with myself. And I just feel like I hope when people look back on this pandemic and look back in history, they see that we made the best of the situation.
So lastly, where can our viewers find more of your work, whether that be a website or a social media account?
I don't have many platforms at the moment for my art, but my main platform is my Instagram at A Deep Blue Day. And that's essentially my only platform at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd have to say Instagram is where I pretty much put everything. So it's at shenanigans, but spelled incorrectly. It's Shanna and then NIGANS _and _such. And then I also have a YouTube, but I haven't posted something there in a very long time. But if you want to check it out and maybe even see some of the animations I made, it's just called Make Art. No spaces. That's all.
Same for me. I have a website called Art with Aaliyah. That's where I put a lot of my stuff, but I have the same stuff on my Instagram, also called Art with Aaliyah. Aaliyah spelled ALIAYA, no spaces or underscores.
And you can follow Student Art Spaces Los Angeles at sas.losangeles on Instagram. And for ArtShare, I think it's just ArtShare_LA.
Yeah, if you just go ArtShare LA on Instagram and YouTube, and then on Facebook, we have two. It's ArtShare and then Art CHER. We post on both. I do have to say, though, if I may say, it's been lovely talking to you guys. You're all such young, inspiring artists who have not been like let down by this pandemic. Like I struggle to get up and make art every day, and it's so nice to see you guys, like, you're fighting through it, you're struggling, and you're all handling it in such positive ways. And I forgot that I was talking to like a youth art, like not youth, but like a young adult, whatever you call yourselves, that's going to be respectful. I just forgot. I thought I was just talking to people in their late 20s because you all sound so eloquent and sure of yourselves, and your passion for the fine arts is really very inspiring. I feel very inspired to go and like make some work, but working with you guys has been amazing, and getting to see and putting faces to the work is so incredible. So thank you for letting me be part of this and listen to your incredibly eloquent answers. I need to start reading more. So thank you.
Thank you guys for participating in this panel, and Tony for helping us through like this process in the gallery.
Just thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us. This was really
Thank
amazing.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking and letting us talk as well. It's very meaningful.